Hi everybody, I'm Kevin from Gameology in Montclair, California, and I'm here today to give you our review of the Warhammer 40,000 Codex Eldar Craftworlds. The first question many of you may be asking is why are we rushing to get out a new Codex review of a brand new book, as opposed to maybe working with some of the things that have been out for a while, such as the Adeptus Mechanicus Scutari Codex, which features a brand new army. The main reason is we've gotten a lot of different messages from our players about what needs to be restricted and potentially banned in our leagues and tournaments. So what we're going to be doing in the future is doing some battle reports and codex comparisons, but today it's all about the Eldar. First off is the Craftworld Warhost detachment rules. For those of you new to the game, this is how you organize your army and what restrictions you're going to have on what units you can take. This is vastly different from the combined arms detachment from the main rulebook, which was the only detachment you were able to take before. Now, this can seem very confusing for new players because there's a lot of options out there. So to break it down, we're actually going to start with formations. In the book, there are 6 different formations. Out of the first 3, you have to take one. This will really help decide how you're going to design your army and then what options you're going to take on it afterwards. The first detachment is the Guardian Battle Host. First and foremost, you get a lot of free guns for your units. It also gives you preferred enemy for some of your vehicles, which can be really nice. Another thing we also like, there's no clutch units in the army, so you don't have to worry about if something gets knocked out early in the game that it could really cost you later. I don't necessarily see this being an incredibly popular formation at first, but down the road it'll leave a lot of room for you to add your bigger units in later for some of the other cool stuff that you like out of the book, so it may be something worth considering. The second formation we're going to talk about out of the potential mandatory elements is the Wind Rider Host. Now this can be a lot of fun to play with all those jet bikes. It's really fast, can hit really hard. However, you do need to keep a couple of things in mind. First off is you need to max out each of those units so you can actually maximize the damage you do with your shred rule. That means you're going to have 10 bikes in each unit, 27 points per model if you're going to upgrade them all with the Shuriken Cannon, and then it's going to be 50 points per model for each of those Warlock Skyrunners. This can be great for you to hit fast, hit hard early in the game, but you are going to want to use Shred that one time in the game early, turn 1, turn 2 at the latest. You also want to make sure you combine it with the Fortune and Doom psychic powers out of the psychic phase so you can maximize your damage. Next up is the Guardian Storm Host. More free options for your weapon upgrades and preferred enemy for your walkers and vipers. I don't see this being used very much, but if you are considering it, you're going to want to take transports to get your guardians in close enough to matter. The first formation of the optional elements is the Seer Council. This formation is going to get abused. Each warlock generates 1 die per model, and it doesn't cap on their mastery level of 3 like it normally would in a unit. That means 10 warlocks and 2 farseers are going to generate 16 dice each psychic phase. That's a lot of dice to throw around for power, so I can see them being surrounded by a lot of units to receive blessings and to protect the unit. This is going to be the defining element in the psychic phase. Also keep in mind that each of those farseers gets a reroll during every psychic and deny phase. The next 2 formations I'm going to talk about are at the same time, the Aspect Host and Dire Avenger Shrine. They're virtually the same thing, but there's 2 things you need to keep in mind when deciding which one. First is, how many Dire Avenger squads do you want? And second, how many Exarchs are you going to play? The Aspect Host gives you a lot more variety because you can choose from different versions. The Assault version would have Striking Scorpions and Howling Banshees coming in, with the +1 weapon skill, making them all that much more deadly in close combat. The Shooting version gets you a choice to choose between your Fire Dragons, your Dark Reapers, and your Dire Avengers, all with the +1 ballistic skill. I would personally take 2 Dark Reaper squadrons and 1 Fire Dragon squad, but that's really up to you on what you want to do. The big advantage that the Dire Avenger Shrine has is the Killing Strike special rule. That 1 time per game where you can get that +1 shot with those Shuriken catapults can be devastating if timed correctly. However, you only get 1 Exarch out of the 3 squads, so do keep that in mind. The next formation I'm going to talk about is Crimson Death. This is a great anti-flyer formation. One of the main reasons being is all 3 of your aircraft get the Jink save without the Jink penalty of having the snapshot the next turn. This is going to be an incredible counter to the Tyranid flying hordes that is a very popular list, as well as some of the Space Marine and Astromilitarian lists that are very flying-centric. I can see this being a great alternative for a tournament if you feel like you're going to face a lot of flying spam. The next formation that we're going to talk about is the Wraith Host. This is going to be an incredibly popular one. The reason being is you get battle focus on all of your D weapons. That means you can run and shoot in the same turn with all those short-range D weapons. The Guided Wraith Sight seems like it'll be a great ability, but I don't see it being overly effective since opponents will most likely target the Spirit Seer quickly if he gets that close. Although this ability will be incredibly useful against Space Marine drop pod spam, as it will be placing several units very close to you already. Smarter players will try to come in and do a very strong alpha strike, taking out your Wraithguard and Wraithblades early, or they may sit back and try and stay in cover and protect objectives to score extra points. In addition to the Seer Council, you may have the Heroes of the Craftworlds or the Living Legends. This is the only way to take special characters for the Eldar. This does allow you to take up to 3 special characters in one detachment, meaning the standard 2 detachment list can have a maximum of 6 in one army. As much fun as many of these characters are, I don't see people maxing out on them. Although Eldrad is a mandatory upgrade if you're taking the Seer Council in larger games. With a 3+ invul save, Mastery level 4, and a chance of generating an extra warp charge point for those Focus Witchfire powers, he is well worth the 95-point difference between him and a normal Farseer. If the plan is to go with the Aspect Host list, consider adding Jane Czar and Karandros to the melee list with a lot of Way Serpents to get them into combat quickly. Or Fuegan and Moggan Ra for the shooting version. A Sermon is a great upgrade for the Dire Avenger Shrine. With the Outcasts, Rangers are a great add-on to hold objectives and snipes similar to the Space Marine Scouts. If you have a few extra points, these guys can win games by holding objectives. Just keep in mind they are very weak against the drop pod heavy flamer combo. The Engines of Vol are still a good option, but I don't see it getting played over a lot of other options out there. If you really love the flying tank platforms, then go for it. Otherwise, this may be a pass. The Wraith Constructs adds to the D-weapon spam. I can see this being used mainly for Wraith Knights without having to pick them up with the other units out of the Wraith Host, or to add more D-weapons to an already existing Wraith Host list. With all new codexes come new units. The Skyrunners are one of the most popular ones. As discussed in Formations, this is going to be a fun list to play. You're moving fast, hitting hard, and buffing and debuffing all in one shot. This can be a bit of a glass cannon. I would look for some good allies in the Dark Eldar with their Raider spam list to dominate the board with all that movement. The Warlock Conclaves are going to be scary. You have got to get in there fast and beat them down. The more psychic phases they have, the worse off it will be for the other player. Look for these units to be well protected, possibly by a wall of Wraithguard or Wraithblades to strike back at anything moving in on them. I'd also do whatever I can to make sure that Eldrad or one of the Farseers gets the invisibility psychic power. This will keep the unit very well protected for the entire game. With the new book, Eldar get 12 powers, which are really 18 options to cast. They also have massive access to telepathy, divination, and daemonology sanctic powers. Although I may have either missed it or it wasn't added into the book to where they're protected from perils of the warp like Grey Knights are when using the daemonology powers. With the Runes of Battle, each of these powers have 2 options when used. They give even more flexibility in the casting. I can see Embolden Horrify being an effective way to break enemy units or to keep cheap Guardians locked in close combat for an extra turn since they won't break and will be fearless. Quicken Restrain is a great way to get units across the battlefield. Look for that to be combined with the Wraith Host for a unit to get to run an additional 3 inches and still shoot a D weapon. The others are also good all-around stat buffs and debuffs that can be used throughout the game. The Runes of Fate have the typical Doom Guide combo, which have been around for several editions. There are also some really scary things. Mind War and Eldritch Storm. These can be game-changing. Mind War can take out special weapons in a squad or flat-out kill special characters. Even on a tie, reducing their stats is brutal. Eldritch Storm can wipe out a vehicle or squad in one shot. The Apocalyptic Blast can destroy several, and both can take vehicles out in one shot as well. With the new book came some big changes. The Wraith Knight is bigger, more expensive, and has a 36-inch D weapon. With the Wraith Host formation, it can run before shooting, putting it in a good position from turn 1 on. The melee version has a 5+ invul save and a D weapon in melee. It is counterbalanced by now being a Lord of War choice. Many competitive tournaments and leagues limit your Lord of War options, meaning this will not be spammed on the battlefield. Also, for every 3 wounds done to a Lord of War, you're giving away a victory point to the other player. So each dead Wraith Knight is 2 points for the other team, turn and a huge chunk of your points off the board. With only a 3-up armor save, look for las cannons, plasma, and melta weapons to turn this model into their favorite target. The Avatar is also now a Lord of War. He has only 5 wounds, so only 1 point to give away. He does have the Cain Awakens special rule, giving Fearless, Furious Charge, and Rage to everything within 12 inches. If your plan is to move a huge horde of assault units across the board with the Aspect Host formation, he is worth considering. Otherwise, he is unfortunately a pass. Next up is Destroyer or D weapons. These weapons have such destructive power that their strength is not measured like others. They have their own chart to roll on and can result in the total elimination of a model, regardless of their number of wounds, Eternal Warrior, or invulnerable saves. The Eldar have lists to spam these weapons, which is what's making them very scary to most people. So one thing to keep in mind, these weapons are expensive in the points department. Wraith Knights are 295 points in a Lord of War. Wraith Guard are 32 points per model, 42 if you're upgrading to the D-Scythe. And they will need to take a transport if you're going to get them in a range to charge. D-Cannons may be an option from the Vol's Wrath support battery for 55 points, but don't count on it living long unless it's parked well in cover. Even then, a heavy flamer will most likely annihilate it in one shot. Thank you very much for watching, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Gameology Shop. If you have any questions or would like to order any product from us, including Games Workshop, you can email us at gameologystaff@googlegroups.com. Thanks again and have a great time gaming.